Order. Mr. Dortch, lead us in the pledge. Please rise. Take your hat off. Put your hand over your heart.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of
the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This time we'll observe a moment of silence. Madam Secretary, call the roll, please.
Shivi, Breckus, Zadra, Delgado, Dorch, Jardin, Kishel.
Here. This time we'll go to public comment. Scott Edmond.
Hello, councilmen, women, or men and women. Mayor Kishel. Appreciate your time. I don't know, I'm speaking that. My name is Scott Emond. I am the owner of Under the Rose Brewing Company. We are up for approval for new alcohol and brew pub license. We just want to introduce myself as well as kind of tell you what we're about. We're a community-minded company looking to aid in the redevelopment and rejuvenation of the 4th Street area. And currently, we are working with the other businesses on the 500 block to put together an organization we're calling Positively 4th Street. And we will be launching this kind of brand on August 17th with a music and arts festival in the alley behind. It's going to be kind of a Maker's Fair commemoration of the 100-year anniversary of Lincoln Highway, as well as grand opening for Under the Rose Brewing Company and Bodega Lounge. Businesses involved are Valley Arts Center, Reno Bike Project, Cuddleworks, Bodega, and Under the Rose. And it's going to be a great time, August 17th. We, pending your approval, we look forward to working with you guys in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Sam Dene?
I would prefer to wait until the mayor comes back. Plus, I handed mine in last.
Your time is called, sir. Please come forward.
Sam Dene, the Encyclopedia of Reno Government. Sam is an Air Force Academy graduate. I'm Sam, and I'm very disheartened by the fact that the mayor has snuck out in the middle of Sam's erudite public comment. That's not right. He should at least give a reason why he left this meeting before it even barely got started. I'm not trying to get upside down with that. I just don't like that idea. Not to mention, you're supposed to take these public comments chronologically, and you did not. At any rate, I wanted to talk briefly about this, these new bogus, unpatriotic, unconstitutional laws that you are trying to perpetrate upon the citizens. You're trying to say that during public comment, I cannot talk about something that somebody else might have talked about before. It says right there, repetition of points previously presented will not be permitted. That is wrong. This is my 3 minutes. I can talk about Eddie Lorton's run for mayor, or if he wants to run for city council, or if he decides he doesn't run for mayor. Now, if he comes up and says he's running for mayor, he's being repetition, and you'll have to remove him from the room for being repetitious according to your bogus rules. That being said, I just have to point out, in case you didn't know it, Amazon, the mighty Amazon, has just announced that Reno is the most patriotic city in America. And ladies and gentlemen, there's only one reason why Amazon would dream that Reno is a nice chortle back there, would even dream that Reno is the most patriotic city in America, and that's because of Sam Dene, the most erudite watchdog in the history of America. And YouTube proves my watchdogging abilities and track record. Patriotism is not about fireworks. It's not about, I'm still disturbed by the fact the mayor is hiding out from Sam. Patriotism is not about fireworks and parades. Patriotism is about having the courage to come down here year after year after year and point out, Mr. Mayor's finally back, and point out, give me another 3 minutes, and point out the corruption in government time after time. Point it out and prove it. And do that in the face of the most dysfunctional media in all of America. Patriotism is having the gumption and the spunk and the moxie and the natural charisma to come down here week after week in the face of idiots amongst somewhere in the room, in the face of vote stealing that is rampant in our community, vote stealing that is rampant and is obviously proven by some of the people sitting right up there on that dais. Vote stealing is rampant in America, especially in Nevada. The media in Reno is dysfunctional. If we had a logical, honest media, Sam would be sitting at the head of that dais over there. But the media is insanely jealous and afraid of Sam. Sam comes down here and points out corruption, bias, and waste in government year after year. That is patriotism.
Wow, thank you. Ted Levetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council, Ted Levatter for the record. Two topics I would like to cover real quick. First was regarding the bag searches going into public events in the city. I believe it was 2 meetings ago, Councilwoman Breckus requested an agenda item to not only discuss the legality of these searches, but also whether or not it's a policy we as a city want to have, and I was just curious if that agenda item was still coming forward. They don't have to, but they can.
We will look into it.
Okay, thank you. I guess, and that kind of leads into my...
I think we did get a legal opinion on it.
Oh,
I remember
that-
seeing something on a legal opinion that came out.
Hopefully that's not the legal opinion from the RGJ, but...
No, this was a legal opinion from,
This leads perfectly into my next topic, actually,
Go ahead.
which is legal opinions and transparency. I know this council is interested in more public participation. In order for the public to participate, we must be informed. So when there's an issue that I'm concerned about, and I hear that a memorandum has been written by the city attorney's office, but it is protected under attorney-client privilege and I do not have access to it, it makes it very difficult for me to participate. And now it sounds like there's 2 issues that I'm interested in that our city's legal department has written memorandums on that I, as a member of the public who's very interested in participating, have no access to. I'll leave it at that. I would like to hear more about the bag searches, please. Thank you.
We'll look into that, and the other item I think was about is further on the agenda, the memo. But I would like to say, I had not noticed, and Mr. Dene brought to our attention some new language related to public comment, and I'm just wondering where that language, it says, public comment on matters beyond the council's scope.
I would
of
like to
authority.
address that since she
Isn't
brought
it-
me back up
Well,
again.
no, I'm not.
Yes, I
She
did.
didn't ask
She
you
brought
back
up my
up.
issue. Every time somebody talks to somebody else, you just got through talking with that man. Why won't you talk with me? Are you scared of me too?
Mr. Dene, please control yourself.
I am in control. You're not in control.
Maybe it's a question for the city attorney. Did new language come on our agenda, and where did that come from? And is it a restraint on the rights of the public and what they address to us?
Tracy Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. There have been some changes in the open meeting law, and the language was crafted because of that. We had to get the new agenda going for this agenda because those changes came in place on July 1st. In addition, some of the language you see today we're going to be removing too as well because another opinion came out just late last week. So your next agenda will even look a little bit differently. There's just a lot of different works that are going right now in the open meeting law. On the repetitiveness, it is not meant to stop general public comment whatsoever. That remains open. What it is meant to do is when you have public hearings, and the mayor even puts this out before public hearings, for people not to repeat the same topic over and over, so.
Well, I guess 2 points is his point was not about repetitiveness, it was about they're talking about something that doesn't serve a governmental purpose.
Yeah, that language will be
relating
removed on
to-
your next
that's
agenda.
coming up.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. So
Okay.
all that will be fixed. It's not meant to curb free speech in any way, and it will be within the open meeting law requirements. So bear with us. We will scrub it again. Another case just came out, so.
Okay, and I think, you're within your ability to put an item on the agenda and explain these things before they just appear.
Certainly. The problem is we had a July 1st date, so we will scrub it and it will be improved, and it is not meant to curtail the public comment before this body.
Eddie Lorton.
For the record, my name's Eddie Lorton, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I ended up, I did a little research and found a little something out that kind of disturbed me, and I wanted to see if the council could check on it. And that's the fact that according to the fire department staff, Mr. Al Correa, he's the fire department's hydrant master. Okay, and there is currently in this town 33 fire hydrants out of service. For example, the fire hydrant at Plaza and Virginia Street. This has been out of service for 2 years. I have no idea where these 33 hydrants are located, and then maybe all across all wards in the whole city. So I think this should have been addressed at the budget meetings we just had. And locally, currently in the fire code, there's supposed to be fire hydrants every 400 feet apart. So if somebody gets to a fire, they can't get there and plug into the next hydrant, we're in trouble, and public safety comes first for the city council and should. And so not many of them knew about this. And so I think right now fire staff has been told there is no money to replace these hydrants. The cost is $5,000 each, $2,000 for the hydrant and $2,500 to $3,000 for installation. This situation is a potential catastrophe, particularly during the current high fire period, which runs through the summertime, especially since we've had triple-digit heat lately. And imagine if you live next to one of these fire hydrants. So I asked the city council to declare an emergency and appropriate the funds necessary to remedy this from whatever reserve or line item that is inappropriate. And I had an idea here on the July 10th agenda under E3, they were going to try to replace 244 computers, and that's going to cost $150,000. They're trying to take that out of the general fund. How about if we end up putting that off another year and use that money to replace these hydrants, because it's a safety issue. I agree that we should look out for the citizen, and if you live next to one of these places, it's a bummer if the fire hits. So I hope you can really consider this, and it is in the current fire code to where there has to be hydrants every 400 feet apart. So that isn't current. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I did get a call on this very topic yesterday from former council member Candace Pierce. Discovered that the hydrant in front of her home is not functional, and she shared the same information, that there are a number of units that are not. And so there is some concern, certainly, by citizens. I think that we need to be advised of what the circumstances are, and if we have action that we need to take, if we could get that back promptly.
Chief, do you want to say anything now, or you want to get back with us a report next week?
For the record, Mike Hernandez, Reno Fire Chief. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, Honorable Council Member, we have approximately 9,380 fire hydrants, of which I believe we have 31 or 32 that are out of service. I'll be more than happy to generate a memo, and I'll certainly talk to Mr. Lorton and any constituents that have concerns about specific hydrants in their area. That's roughly 0.03% of our total hydrant number. Some of these hydrants are very, very old, and obtaining parts for them are difficult, and some of the repairs are well below ground, and they may exceed a $5,000 repair. We do have a limited budget. We are at the beginning of our budget, so we will look at hydrants that need to be repaired, prioritize the ones that are in high-risk areas, and certainly move forward with that. But however, I will certainly generate a memo to council with respect to what's currently the total number of hydrants we have in our system, those that are out, and our path forward.
Thank you, Chief. I was advised that the response or the explanation that they received when they called, and they were talking to the correct party, it seemed, they were told that council advised we didn't have the money to fix them. And since she's a former council member, she knew that that was not most likely accurate.
That's correct.
It has never come to this council. She knew that, but the point is, that's the information that she was given. So we also need to correct how we respond to inquiries.
Certainly. I'll take care of that.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Mark Markell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and Manager, City Manager. My name is Mark Markell, and I'm a concerned Reno resident, and I want to tell people, I'm trying this without my notes, and it's not working well. But I rolled 8 times and was ejected. And I was the car landed on my head, and I was in a coma for a month. And I just want to be sure it's not happened to anybody else. I lost my wife not because of the accident, because she couldn't handle the way I was. She turned to drugs, then that killed her. And so I'm here today to tell you people, anybody that's listening, to ride a bus or take a taxi or do something. Well, just don't drink and drive. And if you're not drinking, don't get in the car with a drunk driver. Or even if I was drunk. And I got in the car with the drunk driver. So it's my fault, but as parents, your kids you could be driving, I don't know, you could be driving with your kids in the car and be drunk and have an accident, and it's not, they're just innocent victims. But I hope everybody, hi honey. Oh, I'm sorry. Just don't get in the car with the drunk driver.
Thank you very much. That's a very good suggestion, Mark. Appreciate it. Having no other public comment cards, I'll close the public comment section. Now bring it back. Item A5, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have one important announcement. I wanted to announce for the council and for the public that we will have the State of the City address on Wednesday, July 10th at 10 a.m. Here in the City Council chambers. Residents, businesses, civic groups, and community leaders are all invited to attend. The State of the City will highlight achievements over the past year as well as challenges and future goals for the City of Reno. I also look forward to addressing our hashtag Think Reno strategic planning process, which is designed to stimulate a collaborative and cultural change here at the City of Reno. The State of the City will also air live on Charter Channel 213, or it will also be online at reno.gov. I would encourage City of Reno residents to participate in the process of sharing their ideas on how to improve the city at thinkreno.org, or they can use hashtag ThinkReno via any social network channel, i.e. Facebook, Twitter, that sort of thing. And to help further engage our community and listen to our residents, I will also be on RGJ's live chat on Friday, July 11th at 1 p.m.
Very good. Any questions from anybody? All right. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll go to approval of the agenda for July 3rd. Any? Chair will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Motion approved. Have a second. Have a second. All in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Item A7, we have somebody wish to speak about minutes. Mr. Levetter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. City Council, Ted Levatter representing Project Solutions. Please try not to hold that against him. You should have a document in front of you right now with some highlights on it. I'm here today to address some factual inaccuracies and errors that were present in the staff report for item H3 at last meeting, as well as the oral report given by Julie Conway. Do you guys have the highlighted document in front of you? Yeah, okay, so I'll just address some of the errors specifically. On page 1, for example, it says that the contract was or the relationship had been 10 years long. It had actually been over 12 years, just as an example of the carelessness that was taken with this document. If you move to page 2, it says the city paid Project Solutions $204,000 in 2000. The real payment was actually $60K up front, and then payments of $6,000 a month for 24 months. And then finally, just below that, it says the city was to receive use of the building, but it wasn't the whole building, it was only parts of the building. But most importantly, and the real reason Project Solution wanted to address this issue is we wanted to make sure that the oral statement by Julie Conway from the 1 hour 34-minute mark, in which she said the city terminated the agreement based on non-performance of the organization going bankrupt. The organization never went bankrupt. It did experience a foreclosure, but it did not go bankrupt. What Project Solutions would like really is 3 things. We may not get them all, but we'll see how it goes. Number 1, we would like to get our grant money and then not have to come back and make any further presentations to you guys regarding that grant money. We received an email from the Parks Department on Friday following the meeting that suggested that the motion from the City Council that approved the grant also required Project Solutions to come back and make a presentation in August. So first, we would like to make sure we get our grant money and then don't have to come back. Secondly, we would like the comments from Julie Conway regarding the bankruptcy stricken from the record. And third, and if at all possible, based on the factual inaccuracies that are in the staff report itself, we would like to see the whole staff report just thrown out. Mr. Mayor, I lean on your discretion and best judgment about how to move forward from here, and I'm available for any questions.
Well, I think we'd have staff and legal counsel go back and verify the minutes and the recordings to see that whether these things are accurately reported. Did we pay, was the agreement for a down payment or 60-something thousand and pay so much a month? Did we pay a total of $240,000? I'd like to know if those things are accurate.
And Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
we could also have reference, please, to the frequency and the commonality that we have of entities that we give money to. We do indeed ask them to come back and report to us what they did and how they're performing.
But I don't think we held up their, we've already approved
We approved the grant, right.
So they could come back and just give us a financial report of where they are. But it's not subject to getting the grant. The
But
grant
I
is
thought,
already,
exactly, I thought we approved the grant.
That's
so
right.
that they didn't have to come back and do that.
that's
They
right.
didn't have to wait for the presentation
Yes.
to get the money.
No, you get the money anyway, but we want a presentation of your financial condition. Yes, sir, come on back up.
Mr. Mayor, Tracy
Yes.
Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. This item relates to the minutes, so if we could keep our comment and direction in regards to the item. But
Okay.
legal and the city manager's office will coordinate to see if there's any corrections in the
Okay.
staff report that need to be done.
Yeah, and regarding the minutes, I encourage you to go back and look at the minutes from your motion.
Right.
The motion did not include us coming back. In fact, I think it was made quite clear by Mr. Delgado that he wanted the organization to focus on its mission to take care of the kids, and there was no need for us to come back at this point. If in the future we come back and ask for additional grant money,
No.
you guys would like us to make a presentation?
We're going to probably ask you for a financial report anyway.
Okay.
Whether it's not to get the grant. You already got the grant. We just want to know what your things are, where you are now, and what the status is.
We would love to come back and make a full presentation.
And so
Yeah.
that'll be an item we'll add to the agenda, and I personally will be making that request.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir. So
Mr.
if council, yes, ma'am.
Well, as a matter of point, I've reviewed our council rules. I don't see anything really relevant to his request on the minutes and corrections. I think,
No.
I think we're within our ability to ask to continue the correction of these minutes to a
Right.
certain point in time, next meeting. The clerk will go back, see if she has accurately
Right.
portrayed the minutes.
And that's the way we'll
and-
handle it.
Okay, that's how we'll handle it. So I'll
That's
make
it.
that motion to continue these minutes to our next meeting.
That'd be
and
fine.
with the request that the clerk clarify that the minutes are accurate.
Or accurate, yes. Do I have a second to that motion? I have a second. One question? Yes.
The bankruptcy specifically, that's a comment that is factually inaccurate that we just don't want to have as part
We
of the
will look
public
at that,
record.
sir,
Okay.
and make sure, okay?
I mean, it does get into a question of what, the minutes have to be factually correct to what happened at the meeting. And so,
It is what she said, but it's inaccurate. So
Yeah.
if in fact all I'm doing right now is putting on the record that we never filed bankruptcy, that's enough
That-
for us.
yeah.
You've
That would
got
be
it,
in these
you've got
minutes.
it, and
It'll be
that's
in the
about the
next
best you're gonna get. All right, I have a motion second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Mr. Dene, we're going to the consent agenda. Whoops, no, we're not. We're going to do cash disbursements. Any questions?
called me, Mr.
No,
Mayor?
sir, I'm sorry. I did
Well, I
call you.
heard you call me.
I
Can
did
say a
call
few
you now.
things
I'm gonna
about
ask
you
you to-
calling me?
I'm going to ask you to sit down now, sir. Thank you. Now we're talking about cash disbursements, June 9th and June 22nd.
move to approve.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Have a second, all in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. There are no proclamations today, there are no presentations. Whoops, well, there is a presentation today. Economic Development Update, The Spark by Brian McArdle, Nevada Institute of Renewable Energy. Sorry about butchering your name, sir.
That's okay. Brian McArdle with the Nevada Institute for Renewable Energy Commercialization, otherwise referred to as NIREC. If any of you are familiar with NIREC, historically, our goal was to commercialize research technologies outside of NSHE institutions, DRI, UNR, UNLV, specifically in the clean tech space. And what we tried to do is help researchers become entrepreneurs and take ideas from the lab to the market. And what we realized over the years is that if we can help researchers become entrepreneurs, we can pretty much help other people become entrepreneurs. So what we've done is we've expanded our programs to get some EDA funding to do a program called The Spark. We also have Project Vesto. If you're familiar with that, we held the announcement here in City Council chambers. And I believe right after me is the alcohol approval for one of the Vesto participants. So they're actually starting their business, so that's a good economic development factor. But today I'm here to talk about The Spark. It was done with an EDA grant under the Economic Assistance Program, and it is to create a virtual platform to educate entrepreneurs. It was a year long, and we recently just wrapped up as of June 30th under the grant. If you can go to the next slide, please. What we did is entrepreneurs don't have readily access to mentors, and the mentors we do have don't have time to give specific help to each and every entrepreneur. So what we wanted to do is create a scalable solution so that all entrepreneurs could actually get the advice from these subject matter experts. So what we did is we went out into the community, interviewed about 10 subject matter experts, and got them on video, high quality video, and asked them specific questions on entrepreneurship, advice that some common entrepreneurs may have. So we interviewed people like Fritz Grupa with the Nevada Small Business Development Center, talking about grant funding. We get entrepreneurs all the time that says, I want a grant from the government to do my great idea. He's a specialist in that, and he says, well, listen, there's a difference between entrepreneurs and inventors. You may have an idea, you may have an invention, but what the government wants to see to give you funding is that you understand how you're going to turn that into a business. So there is a very big difference between inventors and entrepreneurs. You have to manage the idea, you have to bring it to market, and sometimes it's difficult for those people to transition. We have people like Colin Lawrence for the Reno Collective. Each one of these people did about 4 or 5 videos, and they're about 2 minutes long. Colin Lawrence did one on the freemium business model, which is a lot of entrepreneurs nowadays, they want to offer something for free through a website or something like that. They don't really understand how they're going to make money when you offer something for free. Facebook doesn't charge anyone. And so Colin gave his advice on how you actually monetize what you're offering for free. Number of users, things like that. Abby Whitaker talks about launching your product, beta testing, things like that. We also have Rob Ryan with Holland & Hart doing patents and IP. We have Chris Howard with North Star Investors talking about what he looks for in a company. Dusty Wunderlich with DCA Capital Partners talking about how you go about getting venture capital, and a couple other people. So we went out and we interviewed all these people and got 2-minute videos, and we put them on a website. And Through the website, we also tried to drive people to a business model canvas. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's sort of a new concept developed by Steve Blank out of Stanford. And it's an alternative to the 30-page business plan. Instead of taking the time and going and writing a 30-page business plan, which is historically the thing to do, we tried to drive people to a one-page business model canvas. And essentially, if they can identify all these sections on a business model canvas, they have the key components to run a business and essentially use that to write a 30-page business plan if they want. But this one-page plan or canvas says, what are you doing? Who are your customers? How are you going to get the product to them? What do you have to do? What are your costs? And where are you going to make money? And if they can put that on a one simple piece of paper, it's good enough for us. And this is the document that we used as the entry point into Project Vesto. And we had 232 teams across the state submit one-page business model canvases to enter the contest. Through the website, there's a module that we created where you can go onto the website, and I'll tell you the name of the website in a second. And you can actually go in and just fill out these certain categories and then print it out, save it, do whatever you want to do with it. But it's an easy way for people to go on the website and conceptualize their idea. This is the Spark website. It's www.thesparknv.org. All the videos are off to the right. There's a business model canvas section right there. We also have other tools and resources. We try to give people sample documents, NDAs. We try to drive them to the City of Reno Business License Department. Anything that we can do to help them shorten the time frame and educate them in order so that they can bring their idea to light as fast as possible. We also have a startup community tab up there where they can actually go ahead and list their startup. If they're trying to create a landscaping company or trying to do some new online thing, they can go on there and they can list it. So at any time, we want to know what startups are in the area. We can go there and actually look and see who's, if they have a website, it'll be there. If they have a description of their company, it'll be there. So this is the intent is the Spark website. We drove everything here. There's about 34 videos on the site right now. We hope to do more in the future. We hope to get some more Las Vegas participation as well. We're just looking for more funding from the EDA to go out and make more videos. So, and that is it, actually.
Well, thank you very much. That's good. Anybody got any questions or anything right now?
No, but Brian, I love what you guys do, and you guys are such visionaries, and thank you so much, because I know all the people that you help put into business and create jobs, and you guys are doing it.
Well, thank you for your support. We've had Vesto events here. We ran 132 companies. We used the city council boardrooms upstairs to have a Shark Tank-like pitch for Project Vesto. We did the announcement here. I think we had 180 people show up. We've done Startup Weekend with the City of Reno. We'll do another one in the fall towards September. So I thank you for all your support.
Thank you.
We'll keep doing what we do.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. All right, now we'll go to the consent agenda. Before we do, we have somebody who wishes to speak. Mr. Dene.
Sam Dene, the Encyclopedia of Reno Government. And Sam is here to talk a little bit about the consent agenda. And for the folks who do not know what the consent agenda is, it is the situation on the agenda wherein they will be voting, the city council will be voting for a whole bunch of items all at once, maybe without any discussion, so that nobody will even know what was voted on when it's over with, unless you were down here at the meeting. At any rate, I'm here, and this is for the people up there on the watching this on TV, all 3 or 4 of them, but it will be on YouTube later on this afternoon, thanks to Sam Dene. First of all, I want to recommend that you approve that gentleman's liquor license. He was up here a few minutes ago, and you're looking to scan. Oh, that's right, you weren't here. You weren't at the meeting. You left for a few minutes. At any rate, that gentleman there came up and spoke in favor of you giving him a license for his new establishment. And I have to tell you, right now, I recommend that you approve that, if for no other reason than the fact that in all of my 20 years of coming to this podium, I might be wrong by 1 or 2, he is the first person who ever came up here and asked you if you wanted to ask any questions of him about his business. On this agenda, you're going to approve about 6 or 7 or 8 different liquor licenses. And I doubt if anybody is even in the room, any of the people getting these licenses are even in the room. At least that gentleman came down here and offered his, he offered to answer questions that you might have. The other thing I'm speaking of is that, again, we're on the consent agenda where nobody's even going to talk about it or know about it. You just say all in favor of the consent agenda, say aye. I'm looking at E2 where you're going to spend 200, you aren't, but it's free money because it's coming from the federal government. You're going to spend $270,000 on some artwork relative to the someday to be built downtown Reno Bridge. And I'm not speaking for or against it, but it would seem like it would be nice for you, for posterity, to maybe even put a picture up here so the citizens can see where their $270,000 is going to, assuming you vote for it. And I'd like to throw this in, maybe since they've already built one, maybe for a few extra dollars, maybe included in here, you could cut this down just a little bit and take another one of those very popular Eddie Scissorhand, Sam Dene testimonial monuments down there at the south end of town. Take one of those, maybe a smaller model, and put that downtown too. It's become very popular. I live down there and I watch people drive by, and the rubbernecking is really amazing even 6 months later. The other thing I want to briefly talk about is the concept on E3 where some money is going to come in, and you, outside money, federal grant, more free money as I say, you are going to approve this, and apparently the money is going to be sent up to Rosewood, Washington, $75,000. It said some kind of a two-phase fuel reduction plan. Even, look at that, the city manager looking askance. It's right on there. Well, then maybe you should explain it, because that's the way it's worded.
It doesn't say
that
Washington.
You're going to be said Rosewood, Washington.
No, it does not, Mr. Dene. It says Wash. Thank you very much.
See, you answered my question.
Thank you
Thank
very
you. My glasses, I didn't have my glasses on, and I thought there was a period after the W-A-S-H, Rosewood,
Appreciate you.
Washington.
Thank you very much. Now bring it back to the table. Any items to pull for discussion? Chair will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Have a motion? Do I have a second? All in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Now we go to item F, public hearings. Item F1, Madam Secretary, have all the notices been sent?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, proper notice was given and no correspondence was received.
Okay.
Request a staff report on this, Mr. Mayor.
Item F1, staff. Village at Lake Ridge.
Good afternoon, Vern Close, Senior Planner. This is a request for a special use permit and to amend condition number 3 for the Magnolia Village project to allow a restaurant in Building C to extend its operating hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week to 6 a.m. to midnight Sunday through Thursday until 2 a.m. on Friday and Saturday. The Planning Commission heard this project on June 6, 2013, and recommended approval of the project. I'd be happy to answer any questions, should you have any.
Any question?
Mr. Close, did anyone at the public hearing for the Planning Commission speak in opposition to this, where any neighbors came out? Or?
No.
Okay.
And it was in front of the NAB, and it was well received and endorsed as well.
Okay. I guess just as a general point, does the master plan or any of the plan areas or the code put any guidance in where we decide to go up to 2 a.m. hours in certain locations, in residents, and certain businesses that or types of centers that go out to 2 a.m.? Seeing a proliferation of these kind of hours.
The only master plan policy that we saw that was relevant to this was looking at operational hours to ensure that they're consistent with the area, especially residential, and based on the situation where the building is, how far it is from residential, the buffering, those sorts of things as indicated in the staff report. From our perspective and the Planning Commission's perspective, they believed that it was appropriate in this case. So it's more of a case-by-case situation as far as extending operational hours. It's based on the situation that you're looking at the time.
Why did you think it was appropriate to go till 2 a.m. in this location? What sort of things, were brought up as information?
Again, where it's located on two large streets. It's in the middle of a project that has sufficient buffering between it and residential uses that would be affected, mainly to the south. The building's about 225 feet away from the property line. There's a 3-story building that pretty much blocks this line of sight except for 2 lots. There's significant buffering that was added to the project when it was originally approved. There's a 12-foot fence on the property line. There's a 15-foot landscape buffer. There's significant trees there. And again, there's the distance, and also the front of the building is about over 300 feet away, and that's where all the activity would occur. We also checked with the police to see if they had any significant concerns with that, and they did not. So adding all that together, that was how our recommendation was based.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question. This is the location where the old melting pot
Correct.
was?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, do we have any idea, melting pot, Moxie's is going to go in, and Moxie's is not closing any of their other facilities to relocate here, so this is not a, okay.
I believe it's a new location for them.
Oh, good, an additional location?
They have 2 locations, I believe, and this will be a
Yeah.
third.
Do we happen to know if the hours of operation had any effect on why melting pot closed previously?
All I can say is that in the application, once melting pot closed, they had difficulty getting other tenants in there because of the limited operation hours.
Because of the restrictions?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, item F1.
Again, recommendation to uphold or motion to uphold the recommendation of the planning
Have a
commission.
second?
Second.
Have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item F2, Panther Valley Industrial Park. Madam Secretary, have all the notice has been sent?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, proper notice was given and no correspondence was received.
Okay, and we do have one person like to speak, Mike Riley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. For the record, Mike Raley with Rubicon Design Group. Here on behalf of the applicant, we're simply here to answer any questions or concerns you might have.
Okay, thank you very much. Item F2.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'll move to uphold the recommendation of the Planning Commission.
Mr. Mayor, Tracy Chase, may I read the resolution? Resolution number 7884, request for a master plan amendment to change the master plan land use designation from mixed residential to industrial. The subject area includes 3 parcels totaling 21.72 acres, generally located at the eastern terminus of Western Road in the SF6, single-family residential, 6,000 square foot zoning district.
Move to adopt.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item F3, ordinance
Which is
introduction.
Bill number 6865, an ordinance to amend Title 18, Chapter 18.08 of the Reno Municipal Code entitled Zoning, rezoning 3 parcels totaling 21.72 acres generally located at the eastern terminus of Western Road from SF6 single-family residential 6,000 square feet to IC industrial commercial together with other matters properly relating thereto.
Have all the notices been sent out?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, proper notice was given, no correspondence was received.
Okay.
Move to refer, Mr. Mayor.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item F4, Madam Secretary, have all the notices been sent?
Yes, again, Mr. Mayor, proper notice was given, no correspondence was received.
Okay, ordinance introduction.
Which is Bill number 6866, an ordinance amending the Reno Municipal Code Title 18 Annexation and Land Development in order to remove certain language from and add certain language to Chapter 18.08 zoning, Section 18.08-105 entitled Classification of Annexed Land and Section 18.08.106 entitled Sphere of Influence together with other matters properly relating thereto.
We have a staff report on this, Mr. Mayor?
Like staff report.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. For the record, Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner. The Planning Commission has recommended that this translation table be reinstated into code. It's still found in the master plan land use element, but it was removed from code in a streamlining effort in 2011. However, it's created a situation where we're able to process land development cases in our sphere of influence through the land use table. We're unable to officially map it on our zoning map. Reinstating this table will clarify that process. I'm available for any questions.
I guess my questions, Mr. Mayor, are, first of all, you said we pulled it out to streamline. And I think, we had some conversation at this table that it's created some ambiguities. And now it's being thrown back in. And I saw in the record, the Planning Commission said, are we putting in exactly what was in before? And you all said, yeah, we are. And I guess, was there a middle ground? Because when I look back at it now, I understand why it got pulled out, and I think it's a little overly complicated, cumbersome to use. Did y'all put much thought into maybe a newer, better approach?
Our direction was to reinstate it as it was. We think that it functions to address the issue that we had, which is the situation at hand. We weren't able to map annexation applications that were received. It created an extra step for applicants, whereas before it was a clear translation from Washoe County uses to the City of Reno's uses. And that's why this was being reinstated.
Yeah, and I know the Planning Commission gave you the direction because it was initiated by them, but, some of my thinking is on Section A where we have this hierarchy, and it's called a hierarchy, eight-step hierarchy. If it's this, if it's in here, it's this. If it's in here, it's this. If it's in here, it's this. It just keeps going on. And it seems a little cumbersome. And I've worked with this before, and I know it became increasingly cumbersome because it used to be like 3, if this. Now it's down to 8. And we also have a footnote or a table with 7 footnotes, which goes off into different threads. We have the translation table to the Washoe County zonings that have been expired for maybe a decade. So I see it as, not coming back in a streamlined way. I think, I'm willing to support it to come in, but I'd like maybe for the next 10 annexations to trace, and maybe the staff reports can trace about how it's being used and what it is and so on, because I think there is a cleaner way. I think we just haven't done the staff work to get there, and I know you guys are just barely keeping up. But I do think there's an easier way to streamline things. And I guess one other question, because I noticed a difference in the ordinance between the Planning Commission and the City Council, I think, is on, there's a new section here, B, zoning, and it says that, let's see, it said something about, here it is. It was actually, B, zoning designations, this bit about for involuntarily annexations, and if you're down zone, we're going to let you apply for a zoning change for free. Was that before the Planning Commission, or did that come in afterward?
Nathan Gilbert, this was the same information that the Planning Commission
Okay.
reviewed, and was the same
Ordinance? Because
ordinance or the same text that was removed in 2011. And if I could just touch on your previous comment, any significant changes to the way this table operates would also take a master plan amendment to the land use table, because it's
parallel.
It's in the land use plan.
Yeah, I guess I have a little concern that we're introducing these concepts into the code, that down zoning is going to give you something. That I think is a little touchy kind of ground to go into. So maybe we can spend some time thinking of that, because the way the code is if you go from one zoning to the other, it's arguable what is a down zoning. Some zoning districts bring in a whole bunch of uses, and you can say, well, you got these uses, not those. And it also seems like, I maybe can't even think of a down zoning I've ever seen us do, really. But, if you want to run classifications against classifications. So, but then we're allowing them for free to come in through a zoning change, and we're tying it then, the code, to the fee structure. And I think that's something we don't have in code. Do you have any other provisions in code where you say you get a free, the fees are free for you, or are you going to run this parallel with the code, the fees resolution?
I can't think of any offhand, but again, I'd reiterate that we are reinstating the previous
You're
text
just
there.
coming back in?
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know. Your work program?
We can look at technical.
Okay. Claudia Hanson, Planning and Engineering Manager, said that we'd be happy to take a look at that if you'd like to wait.
Maybe could we do it between the first and second readings
Sure.
then? Okay, because I just think it's something I haven't seen in code before. Does your work program have you working on the code at all and cleaning up these sort of things in any way? Do you have?
Are you talking about my work schedule?
Well, the CD planning work program?
I'll let.
Claudia Hanson, Planning and Engineering Manager. Yes, we are constantly working at updating the code, and we do have a schedule to move forward as time allows to update each section of the code.
Okay. Where is this on the priorities?
Where is what on the priorities?
The zoning classification, annexation.
This has been called out specifically on our table of projects to work on outside of that to get this in more quickly.
Just get this in quickly.
Yeah,
and
this
then
has been very problematic for the last few years.
And then look at it more comprehensively.
Yeah, this actually didn't work too bad. There's probably a couple little tweaks. That section in particular, that B, we'll see if we can take that section out.
Okay.
But it really hasn't been too cumbersome. We do leave that, you mentioned the Washoe County zoning district. We would be looking at what the zoning last was on there, and the county has removed zoning in some areas, like in the joint plan that you're very familiar with. Some of those areas don't have the current designation from the county, so the last adopted would be the Washoe County zoning district, the A1 or whatever it was. So some of those cases, those still apply, which is why we kept that section in there.
Well, maybe just, for figuring out how it's working now that it's back, maybe in the staff reports as the annexations come over
Sure.
in the next 2 years, or, next year, let's just see how it's working.
problem.
I think there is an easier way to crunch this code provision into maybe 2 or 3 paragraphs, and I'd just like to
Yeah, we'll keep an
get
eye
it
on
less clunky.
Sure.
Okay.
Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item F5, just a minute, we have somebody wish to speak. Mr. Abney.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, members of council, and Mr. City Manager. For the record, Trey Abney with the Chamber of Reno Sparks in Northern Nevada. I have nothing to complain about at all today. Mr. Mayor, you'd be glad to hear. I want to thank and praise the city.
Hard on our system, don't be.
Tried to change the tone a little bit. I want to thank the city manager and his team for their work and for the collective bargaining units for their work on these agreements. The city is sitting on an unfunded OPEB liability of about $200 million right now, and so the retiree health care benefit piece of this is a good first step in making sure that the city can start to right itself and put itself on sound financial footing for the future. And so we think this is a great way to go about that. God knows we can't get anything done at the legislature on these type of issues, and so it has to be done here at the local level in these agreements. And so I just want to thank the manager and the council for coming to an agreement on these issues, and I wish all of you a very happy Independence Day. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much. We also need to thank the engineers for working with us on this too and doing it, and our staff did an excellent job. Appreciate you bringing that up. Item F5.
Mayor, we'll be getting kind of a Reader's Digest synopsis. There she is. You have to go through each item. Oh, got it. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, and City Manager. What you have before you today is the approval of a collective bargaining agreement between the City of Reno and the International Union of Operating Stationary Engineers, Local 39. This is a 4-year collective bargaining agreement from July 1 of 2011 to June 30th of 2015. And this agreement calls for the elimination of the retiree medical benefit for any employees that are hired, thank you, on or after July 1st of 2013. There is a new entry salary level 5% lower than the current salary range for new employees hired on or after July 1 of 2013. The employees will be paying 50% of their dependent medical coverage rather than 45%. The Nevada PERS contribution increases will be split equally between the employer and the employees. And this year, effective July 1st of 2013, employees will receive a permanent 1% salary reduction to pay for their share of the split. This agreement also calls for fiscal emergency language that will result in an automatic reopener for the salary article in case there are certain revenue shortfalls. There are simplified rules for utilizing sick leave that conform and are consistent with FMLA guidelines. Discrimination allegations, except for union membership, are not subject to the grievance procedure, but will be handled by the appropriate federal, state, or local agency. And grievance complaints involving compensation will be limited to 6 months retroactivity, and payment of union dues has been clarified. There are 3 items that will be suspended for 2 years starting July 1st of 2013. Those are the education tuition reimbursement, the deferred compensation match up to 2.5% per employee, and vacation cash out while employees are still employed with the city. This will save the city about 7.5% over the next 4 years, the last 2 and then 2 going forward. The total cost for year 1 of this contract is $31,278,206. The total cost for year 2 is $30,642,453. The total cost for year 3 is $30,058,284, with the total cost for the 4 years is $123,264,711. And this agreement is for the non-supervisory unit. There are close to 300 employees in this unit, and that's what those costs reflect.
Nice job on this, Renee. Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Okay, so just to explain, to clarify, so currently this group has approximately 300 employees in it.
The non-supervisory unit has approximately 300 employees.
Okay, so what we're saying is all employees hired as of yesterday and forward will not get the 100% taxpayer paid medical that current employees of Local 39 get, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And the benefit is tiered, and it depends on years of service as to whether an employee would qualify for 50% or 75% or.
So if someone's been with us, say, 15 years, they get a percentage, and if they've been with us 25, they get, but let's say they've maxed out and they've been with us 30 years.
Then
and
they get 100% of employee only to age 65.
Do we have, assuming that the number of employees remains the same in 30 years from now, what that number looks like to a taxpayer in the amount that's saved by what we've just done today or may do today?
Well, the current outstanding liability for the city in total is about $210 million. For the Local 39 unit, I think it's about $7 million. Robert's looking it up right now.
You know, while he's looking that up, currently, so let's say you've got people in the program currently in Local 39 that are retiring 5 years from now, and they're only, say, 50 years old. When they reach 65 at Medicare age, do they go on to Medicare, or do the taxpayers continue to pay their full medical for the rest of their life?
For the Local 39 groups, the retiree medical benefit ceases at age 65 for every employee that qualified.
Okay, so that's specific to this group? Okay.
Yes. And the total outstanding liability for Local 39 is $21 million.
Nope, that's it for me.
I guess I have a comment. I'd like to thank the bargaining unit for coming forth and working diligently to get this resolution and for this great job the staff did. I'm saddened by the fact that entry-level positions go 5% lower than existing. It just means to me that wages in our community are declining, and that's across the board in the private sector. Last numbers I saw were about 6 to 8% across the board. Washoe County salary losses going back to 2007. So, you know, the generational inequalities are just mounting in terms of, you know, what people are earning. But having said that, I understand the reasons for it and the fiscal constraints that we operate in. I have two questions. The longevity pay provision on Section D. It says in lieu of longevity, they agree to substitute a deferred comp. That deferred comp has been in there for some time. So this agreement of in lieu has been in there a long time. Why does that language still live in there? Shouldn't it just be struck out?
In the context of the whole negotiations, there are actually several antiquated and language pieces in the labor contracts that are no longer applicable. But in the context of reaching an agreement and moving forward in a timely fashion, you know, some of those things just don't get taken care of right away. But we try to take care of as many things as we can.
And I understand that since we have almost all contracts but one open this time. My other question is, there's a lot of differential pay for different classification of jobs. And through our HR components, as we reclassify, relook at jobs, the workforce becomes more competitive and more people, you know, hopefully get better training or more specific training. Would there be a time where some of those differentials evaporate because that's just a minimum qual? And is that some work that we do in-house or examine?
Yes, those have been looked at and proposals have been made on those particular items over the years and just not resulted in coming to an agreement on how to move forward with that.
We don't have any classification studies underway? I mean,
at this time, we do have certain classification studies underway, but it's not a blanket task that is done on an ongoing basis.
Do those come before us when a position's reclassified in the minimum quals, or is that just done administratively?
No, for civil service positions, the Civil Service Commission approves the minimum qualifications.
Okay, thank you.
I did have one more question. With regards to the 50% dependent coverage, not having a crystal ball to be able to see where healthcare costs are going to go, but we can only imagine. Does that have a cap on it, or is it 50% of whatever the coverage is regardless?
It's 50% of whatever the coverage is, the cost of the coverage.
And there's no cap on what that 50%?
There's no cap at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Chair will entertain a motion. Have a motion. Do I have a second? I have a second. All in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Ordinance adoption, nothing. Item H, whoop. Huh?
F6.
What?
That was F5.
Oh, I scratched it out too soon. Item F6.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is the recommendation for approval for the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Reno and Local 39 Operating Engineers Stationary Unit. The terms and conditions of this collective bargaining agreement are identical to the terms and conditions of the non-supervisory agreement. There are about 25 employees represented by Local 39 in this particular unit. And the cost for year one of this agreement is $3,805,674. The total cost for year two is $3,568,766. The total cost for year three is $3,573,675. And the total cost for year four is $3,709,813, with the total contract cost being $14,657,928.
Is the the 5% entry level reduction also in place for this group too?
Yes, it is.
Everything. Somebody give me a motion? Motion to approve, second. All in favor, say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. And the city staff would also like to thank the bargaining unit, Local 39, their representatives that work for the city, and also Mr. Fredericks for working with the city on this.
I think the
agreement.
city,
And
the
thank
city
you.
council would like to also congratulate and thank them for working with us also. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, this has been a long, arduous process, and both groups really came to the table. That was very nice.
Yep.
Thank you.
Resolution, item H1.
Resolution number 7885, resolution authorizing the Director of Public Works or his designee to execute purchase orders or required contracts for the purchase of materials and equipment for street and traffic signal maintenance and repairs pursuant to Chapter 332 of the Nevada Revised Statutes for fiscal year 2013-14. This comes from the Street Fund and General Fund.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Have a second, all in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Go to item J, standard department items, finance and administration.
Good afternoon, Robert Chisel, Finance Director. For the record, with me is the Chair of the Financial Advisory Board, Tila Hammond, and she is going to be presenting this item on behalf of the Financial Advisory Board.
Good afternoon. I'm, as you said, the chair of the City of Reno's Financial Advisory Board. I'm a CPA with Bernard Vogler and Company in town. You have, I think, our annual report in front of you, and so I wasn't necessarily going to read it to you, but it just presented our various presentations that were given to us, the items that we reviewed, and the different motions that we made. So unless there were specific questions on that item, I was going to move along.
Good.
And then the next item is our work plan for the 2013-2014 year. And typically, since I've been on this board, there's not very many changes to that plan, although last year we did add to be able to assist the city with internal audit functions. For those of us that are CPAs on the board, we realize that that's an important function, and with the limitations on the staff, we've offered our assistance with that and did do a project last year, and we hope to continue to do that to be able to help the city. So. And everything else is pretty much what's been on our plan for the various years. So unless there's any items you would like to add to that for us to look at in the upcoming year, we would just ask that you approve our report and our plan for the upcoming year.
Anybody got any questions I'd like to ask?
No, I just want to say thank you. You guys do a fantastic job and appreciate the internal audit that you're offering the city. And I think you guys.
We really appreciate everything y'all been doing.
Thank you.
Chair will entertain a motion to accept the report.
Move to accept the report.
Have a motion second. All in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Community development presentation. CDBG.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Jody Royal Goodwin, Housing and Neighborhood Development Administrator for the record, and I'm here because I was asked to come do a presentation about the CDBG. There actually is a presentation.
Go ahead.
Waiting for the pretty picture. So the Community Development Block Grant Program was established through the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974, which has been amended about 10 times since then. The City of Reno has been a grantee virtually since that time, but what that Housing and Community Development Act did was combined 8 competitive programs that were in existence up to that date, and those were programs that funded projects for urban space, open space, urban renewal, neighborhood development, historic preservation, model cities, public facilities, neighborhood facilities, and water and sewer grants. So as you can imagine, many of those things are going to be eligible under the Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG. The primary objective of creating CDBG was to develop viable urban communities through the provision of decent housing, suitable living environments, and expanded economic opportunities. The federal government recently re-established those as the main goals when they required jurisdictions to establish a program
outcomes that we actually have to input into the system that they use to track the expenditure of funds. So to receive the money, we have to do a number of things before you get the first grant, and then each year or in a periodic basis since then. You have to complete a consolidated plan, which includes the strategic plan, which is a 3 to 5 year plan that says you've analyzed what the housing and homeless needs are in the community. You've analyzed the housing market. The strategic plan then says how you're going to address each of those issues. And then you have to also tell them how you made this plan. Did you hire a consultant? Did you talk to people? Who did you talk to? Along with that, you have to do what's called the analysis of impediments to fair housing. It's a study, looks at both rental and home ownership, and if there are disproportionate issues or concentrations of minorities or different special needs or minority populations within the community. We also have to have the citizen participation plan, which outlines how we're going to consult with the citizenry. For us, we have to have 2 public hearings each year. We typically do that with the action plan and the CAPER, which I'll talk about in a second, as well as how long you will give the community to comment on a plan that you are either establishing or amending. So that leads us to the annual action plan, which goes into much more detail than the consolidated plan about what you're specifically going to do. So both of these look at the resources and then how you're going to use them, but the consolidated plan does it kind of at the 30,000-foot level, and the action plan says, this is what we're going to do this year. So in May, you actually, I think that's where this direction came from, was you approved our action plan for submittal to HUD. We have to submit that 45 days before our program year starts so that they have time to review and approve it, make sure it meets all of their requirements. In that process, we Andrew signs a number of certifications that says we're going to comply with Section 3, we're going to further fair housing activities, we're going to do a number of things, including we're not going to spend any money that's not how it's supposed to be spent. And then in September, 90 days after our program year ends, you'll see us back, and we'll be talking about the Consolidated Annual Performance Evaluation Report, which is our CAPER. We tell them what we actually spent the money on, show that it was in compliance with all of the rules, and then who were the beneficiaries of those programs. So you have to use at least 70% of the project and program funds for the benefit of low and moderate income persons, either through area benefit or direct benefit. And then there are statutory limits on how much you can spend for blight and slum reduction, and public services. Public services gets us into a little bit of a discussion a lot of times because the reg is that you cannot spend more than 15% of your grant funds on public services or the amount that you spent in 1982 or 1983, whatever that proportion is. So when you look at our action plan, we actually spend about 26% of our grant on public services, primarily the shelter operations at this point. And then not more than 20% of the CDBG grant can be used for planning and administration. The 2 above that are actually after you take the 20% out. So when you take the grant amount and you subtract the administration, it's 70% of that balance and 30% of that balance. So CDBG funded projects must be both eligible and meet a national objective. So there's a multi-step process we go through when a council member might say we want to do this project, we would go back and we'd have to look at, is it eligible? And not specifically said it's not eligible. HUD in their great infinite wisdom words things wonderfully. And then does it meet a national objective? So in broad sweeping terms, these are the eligible activities. You can acquire property. You can relocate individuals that may live or have a business in a property that you purchased. For existing council members, you'll remember Oliver and Montello. We acquired businesses. We relocated those businesses to other areas because they were functional, and that's a requirement under the federal regulations. We can construct or improve public facilities. We cannot maintain them. We can, so if we wanted to build a new community center, we could do that. We built the Community Assistance Center using some CDBG funds. Those types of things and then you can do the public services that might go on in those. But you cannot typically operate them, and we'll get to that in a second. You can rehabilitate residential property, both rental and ownership. You can fund code enforcement activities in eligible areas. You can fund economic development activities, micro enterprise assistance, another economic development activity, and home ownership assistance. The specific things you can't fund are buildings for the general conduct of government. So we can't pay for the utilities at City Hall. We can't pay for general government expenses. So you can pay for my time because I administer the program, but I can't pay for Claudia's time to do planning. Sorry. The political activities, I think that's probably evident. Operation maintenance of public facilities. Again, we could build it, we could improve it. We cannot pay to run the pool or to keep the lights on. We cannot construct new housing. You can rehabilitate, you can't build. And then we can't pay subsistence payments, and that would be like a welfare payment. You can't make a payment directly to a low and moderate individual for living expenses. And the one rule they give us is that generally if it's not specifically authorized in the regulations, that means it's not eligible. Yep, sorry, wrong side. And so that gets you to, once you say you have an eligible activity, what's the national objective it meets? What's the public benefit? Does it benefit low, moderate income persons? So is it in an area that's 51% or more low, moderate income? And I'll show you a map in a little bit. I couldn't get it to go into the PowerPoint. It copied parts of it. And so, and a low and moderate income person or household would be for a family of four, that'd be about $54,000 a year would be the maximum income they would put. So you'd have a neighborhood that's 51% or more of households that earn less than that amount. Or directly benefits a household with that income level or a person with a qualified income level. And that would be, say, for shelter activities, those are lower income persons, so they qualify. They're presumed benefit because they're presumed if they're homeless, they don't have enough income to qualify beyond that. Housing, we previously had a rental rehabilitation program that was for low and moderate income persons to maintain their properties and retain their home ownership. Or you can do economic development activities that will create jobs for individuals who are part of a low and moderate income household. The second national objective or public benefit is the prevention of or elimination of slum and blight. It can be done on in a targeted area. In the state of Nevada, the only official definition of blighted areas is in the identification of a redevelopment area. So for us to use our code enforcement officer, it has to be in a redevelopment area, specifically in a redevelopment 2 where there are residential areas and where it qualifies as a low and moderate income area. Or you can do spot basis. So you have a building that's run down and a hazard. You could demolish that and put it into reuse as an eligible activity. We use this one, you could use either one of them, for the plaza when we were putting in that facility. Or you can address an urgent need, but it has to be a declared emergency. So I said that we have to have the consolidated plan. In the 2010 to 2014 consolidated plan, which is what we're currently under, you can see we have 5 overarching goals, from expanding rental housing opportunities, which are largely done through the home program, stabilizing neighborhoods and increasing appropriate housing opportunities, supporting organizations that provide services to those in need, increasing economic activities or economic opportunities, and then quality living environments through the reduction of blight and improvement in infrastructure like sewer projects, sidewalk projects, those types of things. And in the consolidated plan, like I said before, you estimate what resources you anticipate having available over the course of that time period. Over the course of the time period that we're in now, this consolidated plan, we've lost about $340,000 on an annual basis. Just from the first year to this year, we've dipped below that. Last year was about $1.7 million. So you're still trying to meet all of those goals that you established in the consolidated plan, but with less resources, which isn't a surprise to any of you. But so for the current action plan, these are the specific projects that were approved, plus current projects that are kind of carryover projects from previous funding allocations that should be completed within the current fiscal year. So the Reno Sports Complex, we're doing the ADA improvements. The home accessibility modifications, we actually invest a very small amount of money, $15,000, and it assists people who are disabled to remain in either their rental or home ownership housing. We're continuing to do pedestrian ramps that were funded in the previous action plan, as well as some sidewalks that will coincide with a street program from Public Works. We continue to fund the code enforcement officer. Economic development, we actually have funding that was allocated in a previous year, and we are currently working with a couple of organizations to get programs back in place to help standard small businesses with loans, as well as some micro enterprises that EDON is working with in terms of, like you just heard, the Spark, those types of programs, more IT, getting a little bit away from the more service sector type jobs and diversifying the portfolio of what the city has actually funded. We continue to have a bond repayment for the next 18 months or so. That pay is about $400,000, with 50% of that being for the plaza and 50% of that being for the shelter. Like I said, all of our public service dollars go to shelter operations, and then we also used deobligated funds from projects that came in under budget or were canceled to support an NSP project, the Moran Street Apartments reconstruction. Again, like I said, we can't do new construction, but because we didn't tear down little bits of the wall, it's reconstruction. So, and that's the basic overview. I'll answer any questions, and I'll show you this map.
I have a question. So you said the CDBG funds cannot be used for the operation?
They can.
Well, you disqualified something.
They cannot be used for the general operation of government.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
And there's a bit of a confusion on one of the statements, which I kind of, and this is their wording, not mine, is why it was probably what's more confusing. Because so it says that you cannot use the funding for the operation and maintenance of public facilities. That is beyond public facilities under the public service cap.
Okay. So these funds are used for the operation, but the conditions of the operation are under our authority and direction.
Right. So because there's the cap on it, what it's saying is that out of that, you can't spend more than that amount on to operate a public facility outside of public services. So I can't use my normal, the other 75% of the funds to operate. I can't use 100% of the funds to operate a public facility.
Okay, I understand that. Can you use any portion of these funds for transportation related to the facility?
It would still be under public services.
It would be. So even if we discovered another location that we could rehabilitate as an overflow, we couldn't use the transportation?
Correct. So when we talk about overflow, there are a couple of things. It is an extension of the public service contracts that we have. Okay. So like if we have to lease space, that would be part of the public service dollars that are allocated, the transportation. So when we do overflow, when we did overflow off of Mill Street, there was transportation provided. It was just part of the public service dollars if we had used CDBG.
Okay, thank you.
Are we using, along those lines, are we using the 1983 waiver for public service uses?
It is, yes. It's not a waiver. It's actually a regulatory allowance.
Okay.
And we do use that amount.
How can we be doing that if we didn't have the CAC back then? Or is it just what we were spending back then as a percentage in other public service types, and we were doing that?
Exactly. The regulation states that you can use the same proportion as you used of the 1982 or 1983 grant, or 15%, whichever is greater.
What are we using?
It's about 26%.
26%. So we're pretty high. Did we start out at 26 when we started the CAC, or did we start lower?
We started lower, and we use the full amount at this point to make up the shortfalls from the formula out of the property taxes and to avoid hitting the general fund.
Okay, so the 26%, are we at the cap of the 1982 or 1983
Yes.
then? Okay, so we maxed out there. And, okay, so that answers that. The bond repayments, that's on the reconstruction of, or the construction of the CAC, right?
Yes, there is a portion of the bond payment was for the construction of the family shelter at the CAC, and the other portion was for soft costs associated with the construction of the plaza to North Virginia.
Now, if we were inclined to think about perhaps, forward thinking of our CDBG resources to homeless facilities that we maybe have a gap in right now, which is like a very transitional thing, could we forward commit some bonding authority, or is the CDBG outlook that vague that we couldn't do that? Match it with some home or something else, some land we have, and get another housing product out there for folks.
I think there were a couple of questions in there.
Yeah. I mean, we can forward bond
We
for
can
another
forward allocate
reconstruction.
with HUD approval.
Okay.
We do have this bond until December of 2015. It will be repaid. The current outlook for CDBG is pretty vague. In the House, they're looking at a 50% cut to the program. In the Senate, they're looking at best case scenario is staying the same. And staying the same might actually hurt us a little bit, because we had a couple of things work in our favor this time. That was they moved to using the American Surveys data instead of the census data, which gave us a boost in both the poverty rates, unfortunately, and population as a whole. And then they also used unallocated disaster recovery money to supplement the CDBG funds. That money won't be available next year. So we're probably looking at a decrease one way or the other. So it depends on what we were looking at doing. There are many ways we can look at things. They don't let you go out any more than 10 years now, and they prefer 5 at this point.
Do they allow it to leverage with home funds or other housing funds?
If they're both eligible, if it's eligible under both programs, they would allow you to do that. They do not allow you to forward commit home funds, though. And they would, and all of the home requirements, which are much more stringent than the CDBG requirements when you're talking about housing, would trigger.
Okay. And the 20% planning and admin, we take that, right?
We do.
And what is that funding?
It funds staff salaries, so right now 2.3 FTEs and 2.4 FTEs. And then we have we have a contract with Silver State Fair Housing for our Furthering Fair Housing requirement. We fund part of the Continuum of Care coordinator contract, as well as in the coming year will be, in 2014-15 will be, 14-15. We'll have to do new con plan and AI.
Okay. I guess my question is, you mentioned we couldn't, where's the code enforcement officer? Is he one of those 2.3 or she?
He is not.
Okay, so that's.
It's a
program eligible.
cost.
Okay, I guess my other question is, when you had that economic development component, that can be used for planning, right? Economic development planning or?
Well, a portion, what we're looking at, actually, you can use a portion of it for economic development, like technical assistance activities. And a portion of what we're looking at would actually do that. It would be to bring in a business development officer, not as a city employee, but to manage a program and undertake that activity on behalf of the city.
Yeah, I'd like, for this table to have a little discussion on that, because I have seen our CDBG resources used over the years on microenterprise, this economic development. It seems like we've gone in different ways and nothing's ever really caught. And I'd just like to make sure that we're talking and looking at best practices and that they're geographic specific, maybe, as you show your map. So maybe we can have a little bit of that discussion or the proposal brought forward at another time to us. And on the housing component, I was struck by the last time when we had the CAC contract in front of us, some of the discussion of, basically we don't have a lot of funds for homeless. And I think that is really true. And with this bond repayment, the HEARTH Act, maybe we start to imagine what, if there's something that can help the solution there on the housing side of things is something I would suggest. So when's the consolidated plan get redone?
We've just started year 4.
Okay.
So like I said, starting between July 1 of 2014 and June 30th of 2015, we have to do a new consolidated plan.
Okay.
And just so it's not a great map, I'm sorry. It's hard to get the whole city with all of the information on it. I have copies if you'd like them, but there's hashtags here. So like most of the inner areas, you can almost tell, are CDBG eligible areas. So all of these more shaded areas. And this one actually is the better map because it actually has the census tracts in the block group. So if you're looking for a specific area, you could pull it up a different way and know.
Had census tracts added since the recession started?
Well, CDBG eligible areas are done on census data. So this is based on the 2010 census. So if there are areas added, they won't actually get added until the next census is done. And the other thing is when we do an eligible area activity, you actually have to look at the area that's being served by that project. So like if we did a community center, you wouldn't look at the entire city. You may or may not look at the entire census tract, depending upon what size it was. You may be looking at a very small area or a very large area, and we have to do a different kind of survey to determine if it does qualify the service area specific. This is just a starting point.
I would suggest to this body that, and I don't know what our advocacy role is with our federal delegation, but this program is a cornerstone of American cities and has done so much for so many cities for so many decades, and it really is under assault. I hope we are communicating how we find it important to our community, to our federal delegation. Have we written any letters, or is it part of our lobbying?
We do. We participate in a number of national activities or national groups that keep us informed, and then we take action when there are specific activities. The mayor has signed letters. The city manager has signed letters.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Yes, please. I have a motion, second. All in favor say aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. We're at item J3.
Mr. Mayor, for the record, Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner. This is a request for the to initiate a rollback of portions of the sphere of influence through the regional planning process. The areas identified on your maps, on the maps in your staff report, include portions of the Gold Ranch area, Grandview Terrace, and the Whites Creek area. All of these areas were evaluated during the previous city program of annexation. The council at that time chose not to include them in the annexation process. Staff has had numerous discussions with the Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Agency and Washoe County staff in consideration of rolling these areas back, as they do not appear ripe for annexation in the near future. The previous city council has already initiated the rollback process through a previous motion. However, given the fact that we have 4 new council members, we wanted to bring this for their attention and reaffirmation of the direction. I'm available for any questions.
Question?
Mr. Gilbert, would you throw up map for the first area, the North Virginia areas? Okay. You know, when I talk to the chiefs, I hear a lot of times about our spotty municipal boundaries, very difficult for coverage. in many ways in services. And I have history with this area. I was a staffer at the city when this little area, Grandview Terrace, was put into the sphere as part of a large comprehensive planning effort. And that resulted in a lot of the area that is within the city, now in the city. And I think, you know, it was right to bring it in. It brought in the Sky Vista community and so on. I'm a little concerned, and this Grandview Terrace is very historic. This is where the African-American GIs moved up to when they came back from the war and had the GI Bill, and they couldn't buy property in the city because of racism. So they settled up there. It's a very historic community. It has its own GID. It was sensitive when they were brought into this sphere of influence. But I have concern pulling them out now. You know, it's a tough community. It's probably a CDBG eligible community, so it comes with you know, maybe old infrastructure and issues. It could be a liability to us from a service level in terms of we have to maintain everything there if we annex it. But it also comes with the problem that, you know, we've got an incident up there from a RPD position, and you know, they're rolling right past there and they're going to the subdivision next door. It really brings in the spotty nature. And so I'm concerned. I mean, we're still spotty up in this corridor. The other one, the Horizon Hills, which has never come into our sphere, is in there, and I think maybe up against the hill a little more distinctive. And then the other stuff we're pulling out, that red stuff, I'm very thankful that that's coming out. We don't need to go to suburban densities that cross that railroad track. I mean, that's not an area I think we want to, you know, be putting people into. But I don't know, you know, does anyone see problems with this? Have you talked to other folks? There's a kind of a cost-benefit ratio we've got going on in this little pocket here, which will stay unincorporated.
Well, this is certainly up for your discussion. The Grandview Terrace area, Washoe County Council member, board member had requested that we evaluate this. Currently, that area is in the mixed-use North Virginia Transit Corridor. That's being reevaluated as far as the appropriateness of it. Certainly when somebody wants to redo a home in character with the existing neighborhood, the existing zoning that's there now is not appropriate. That is planned to change. Even with a rollback zoning, a more appropriate zoning for that area, there still has been discussion, you know, is this appropriate? You know, is there an appetite within the community to be annexed? When this was brought towards the previous council, or should this be included in the program of annexation, it was identified to be excluded. And so certainly a topic of discussion, but thus far, and that's why we're bringing it back to you, with the 4 new members to reiterate and reaffirm the direction that we want to take if we want to proceed with the sphere of influence
and
rollback.
Mr. Mayor, we did have quite a bit of discussion, I recall, about it. And when these areas were identified and proposed for inclusion, it was an entirely different time.
Right.
And times have changed, and we're trying to be respectful and responsive to the changing times. And I believe we even heard from the chiefs in those prior discussions if they did have any concerns or hesitation with this recommendation, and we were told no, that there were no concerns. So I think it's something that we would want to move forward with. That's a motion.
So this will remain, you know, I don't know how many homes are out here, maybe 50 or 60. This will remain a pocket.
Let me get a motion first.
Okay,
And
okay.
I've got the motion, and I got a second, now discussion. Go ahead.
Okay, so this will remain this little isolated subdivision of 50 or 60 homes of unincorporated residents, which, you know, that comes with a certain identity. They've got certainly Horizon Hills across the way, that is there. It's just, you know, we've gone back and forth on this area for about 15 years, even though we've incorporated quite a bit here. But the preference is to not bring them in. I don't know if it's the best land use policy to exclude them. I operate, and I think that our master plan has, you know, consistent, identifiable municipal boundaries. And I think that is the better land use policy. I think that at some point you want your boundaries set and you have knowledge of where they are. And I think on the other side of the railroad tracks, up against that hill, that's where, to make the distinction, there's this Anderson Acres, heading over to Cold Springs. Maybe in the big scheme of things, it doesn't matter, but I don't know. Do others have any thought? What's staff's recommendation? I mean, what do you?
You have our recommendation here. This will be rolled back.
Okay.
All right, I have a motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. At this time, we'll go to...
Mayor, I'm sorry. That was map 1. I thought we were just motioning on that because we had 3 areas.
That was the whole thing.
Okay. I guess I have another question then I'd like to just kind of follow up with on map 2. And, for me, this municipal boundary issue is the big thing. It really is a big thing. I think it's, when you look at what happened with fire and deconsolidation in service areas, it's our geography, and these are the big geography questions. So if you would mind bringing up the second map, I have a question about that.
Was that the South Meadows or the Gold
yeah.
Ranch? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Tracy Chase, Reno City Attorney's Office. Do you want to reconsider the item? Because the motion has been complete. I mean, I don't mind further dialogue if the
There's
council
no
wants to do that.
problem with discussion of it, is there?
No, I mean, that's
So I'm
fine.
just going to have discussion. If somebody wants
Okay.
to bring it up for reconsideration, then I will.
Okay,
But if
thank
not,
you.
all we're going to do is discuss it for a second or
Okay.
two.
Okay, we're pulling out of the sphere their regional park, right? The county's regional park.
That's open for suggestion.
It's open for suggestion. It's, well, okay, but it is part of this action. I guess my question is, so we've got city on either sides, so incident happens there and the sheriff's pulling out to the regional park. The county operates the park. Maybe there's some logic in that. Rancho San Rafael Park is also unincorporated, correct?
Correct.
Has that ever created any issues or problems having unincorporated, the parks? The county parks, all surrounded by our city, any jurisdictional issues?
Are you talking about specifically police?
Yeah, police or
protection?
fire or anything.
I'm not aware of that, but it might be an appropriate question for the chief.
Who wanted this out? Does county staff want this out?
Are you talking about the regional park or
Yeah,
the
the
Whites Creek
regional park,
subdivision? It was a suggestion, and again, this is just an initiation for us to further the discussion through the regional planning process. We're still working with regional planning staff and Washoe County staff. Removing the park, it's cumbersome. Certainly, there's no point in annexing a Washoe County facility. There's no tax basis for it. As far as when they come to us to do something on their park, they have to follow City of Reno standards if they're annexed. So taking them out of the sphere was a suggestion to ease cooperation with the way, the functionality of the park. They may, because there's some technical elements to it that we're still in discussion, they may not want that rolled out and would just have to bite the bullet and deal with their land use authority. But it was suggested as a means of cooperation.
Why did it come in the first place? Do you recall that?
Why it's in our sphere, I don't know.
What's the history?
Years. Any other discussion? Okay. Now we'll go to item K1, boards and commission appointments. Item K1, regional planning, is a recommendation that Dagny Stapleton be appointed.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Have a motion, have a second? All in favor say aye. Aye. Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item K1B, Recreation Parks Commission.
Mr. Mayor, I would recommend that Craig Charlson be appointed so that we will have a Ward 2 resident on the Rex Parks Commission.
Have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those that oppose, no. Motion carries unanimously. Item L, mayor identification of mayor and council items for future agenda.
Mayor, I have 2.
Okay.
I think it's come up before that we have areas of mature neighborhoods where there's properties that remain in kind of an outdated zoning, you know, not the regional transit centers and the corridors, and that creates issues in terms of development of adjacent properties and some of our relationship issues of one property against the other. And so one area is around the Mayberry, Hunter Lake area, where we have a lot of old houses that have turned into businesses, but we still have some properties that remain with single-family residential zoning. So I'd like to put on the zoning, the July 10th meeting, consideration for the council to initiate a zoning map amendments from MF14 to public facility for our city fire station on Mayberry Drive, and also a zoning map amendment for the adjacent parcel, which is an NV Energy parcel, from SF6 to public facility. It's pretty much our practice that public facilities are zone public facility, and the residential zoning of these properties is problematic.
Anything else?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like when we return back in August, I've been hearing from a number of constituents, concerns, questions about the waste management contract and rollout. I'd like an update from staff on the specifics of this. I'm getting into the 20 bags, the cart, the, are there any waivers for elderly people who can't roll large trash cans out, and something else that was brought up the last time Mr. Geddes was here talking about the sustainability program is the ongoing monitoring that we will have, an evaluation process on understanding how the performance of the waste management contract is going during the franchise contract terms. And so I'd like to have that discussion and know what authority this council has to review and understand and evaluate the performance of that, and an update on the single stream eco center and the construction of that.
Okay, any other questions? Any others? I would like to see something on the agenda of how we can address these closed motels and stuff downtown that are boarded up, how we can either get them to open them up or tear them down, clean them up, the lots. Can we legally, if I went out and got contractors to do it for a gratis basis and place a lien on their property, can we do those type of things? So I'd like to look at that. Also put the Kings Inn on that list also to find out how we go in and either get them to open that place up or let's start dismantling it. And then lien the bank or probably whoever it is, or see if the bank will maybe make a donation to the city and take a tax write-off. I'd like to see those, and I'd like to go back and talk to them about those and clean those up, because those are a real blight downtown, and we've got to clean them up. Sooner the better. Any others? Okay. Do you have some, Ms. Sandra? Okay. Any liaison reports? Ms. Brackus?
Item L4, Mayor?
Yes.
L2.
Oh. L2.
Oh, I don't have any.
Okay. Ms. Zadra, Mr. Delgado, Mr. Dorch, Ms. Jordan, Ms. Sheevy. All right. Any report, L3, any reports or professional meetings? Okay. Item L4, discussion potential direction, city manager to use 2 hours or more of staff time, legal frame statute or ordinance proclamations by the city council and including the mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I think Mr. Lavater kind of leaned into this a little bit, is, and actually I think he's the one who raised it initially, is we had been approached by some citizens to take an action or a position on an issue. And the people who brought it, we had that discussion, we declined to do so. Some of the reasoning behind that was we don't want to do those sort of things. Well, later, a couple months later, a proclamation was provided, and Mr. Lavater said, wait, I thought you didn't want to do proclamations for this reason. How do you all decide on how to do a proclamation? What do you do for proclamations? And so I said I had that question too. So I put that on the agenda and wanted to have a discussion about proclamations. In the meantime, the city attorney's office wrote a memo on that to us. It was a confidential attorney-client memo, which should be the starting point for the discussion because they've given some background, but it's confidential. So Mr. Lavater was here, wanted to get a copy of it to be a part of that discussion on some issues he's raised, and he hasn't obtained a copy. And so I don't know, I want to have this discussion. I want to reference the attorney-client privilege document. I don't want my receipt of that to have a chilling effect on my ability to talk about this issue. So this procedural issue is raising this other procedural issue about when the attorney provides us a memo on an issue one of us wants to discuss, are we now shut down and being able to talk?
I would think that we could discuss it in a closed legal meeting and then discuss what you're talking about. The way I've done proclamations in the past when they've been requested of me, if I don't think it's something that I really want to put my signature, I usually bring it to the council. The council can vote, and if they want to do it, then I sign it as the mayor.
As the mayor. Well, I guess, what I see, I've read charter and I've done a word search on RMC, and the only place that proclamations appear is in our rules of the council in the order of the agenda. And so the question is, who gets to do the proclamation? Do we vote on those? There's one thinking that the mayor gets to do proclamations in the charter for an emergency. If there's an emergency, the mayor proclaims, but does that mean then the mayor gets to do all the proclamations, or do we want to amend our council rules to specify how we do it? Along the lines that you just said, how you do it. Do we want to put that in the rules and make it more specific?
That's up to this council. However they want to do it. In the past, the 10 years that I've been here, that when I get them, because I get some from the Army, I get some from different food banks and different things like that we don't even read publicly. And what I do is sign those. But if there's certain things like on chemicals and on this and that, and people come to us, like Mr. Lavater asked for a proclamation on something, if this council wants to bring it back and do it, I didn't know anything about the issue, don't know what he was talking about, so I don't like signing something that I don't. But if this council agrees that it will, then the mayor will sign that proclamation. Mr. George.
Yeah, and let's separate the issue between Mr. Lavater and proclamations. He asked for a resolution, and that is something that this council votes on, and we decided not to. He asked for a resolution, not a proclamation.
Right.
And in the past, it's amazing that this is really this big of a deal, because the mayor's been able to do proclamations as long as I've been on the council, and pretty much anybody that comes in and asks for a proclamation, I think the mayor usually accommodates them in some manner. And all it is it's a proclamation from the mayor of the city of Reno. It really doesn't bind us to do anything, other than we recognize either a charity or someone for something that they've done. It's not that big of a deal. And to have this discussion about who should be able to do them, I've taken several things to the mayor and said, hey, can you do a proclamation for this person or for this organization? And every time I've done it, he's done it. Well, so I think it's just kind of a little ridiculous.
Mr. Mayor, Tracy Chase, Reno
Yes.
City Attorney's Office. What I can put on the record for your discussion, and so we don't go into confidential memorandum, if you want to ask me a question in the public meeting about proclamations, I can provide that information. For example, the mayor's authority is within the charter under the ceremonial authorities provided to the mayor. The city council also has authority as a body to request the mayor to do a proclamation, or you can do your own resolution as a body to take a position on a matter.
That's already in our operations.
Yes,
So what do we want to
there's
change?
different ways you can do it, but a proclamation is ceremonial. It is not binding the city to any contract, to any matter. It is a ceremonial type of document. If you want a stronger document, like what Mr. Lavater was requesting, and he wanted the city to take specific positions on what city personnel would and would not enforce, that a proclamation would not have even affected that type of result. So it would have had to be a resolution of the council if it was within your authority, or other type of law that you created under the authority of the council.
And I don't do resolutions without this body.
No, a resolution is the body. That's exactly what I'm saying, Mr.
No, I
Mayor.
know.
The body votes as a whole on a resolution. So I don't know if that helps you. You can put guidelines in your city council rules, but
I
the
think we already have
ceremony
them.
head of the city is the mayor pursuant to the charter.
Well, I guess, the mayor has responsibilities that are ceremonial, and that is a statement in the charter. And this really does have broader implications than, it really is a discussion about the distinctive nature of the mayor, the office of the mayor. And there's been a practice of giving the mayor that distinction of doing proclamations, his sole authority, or by virtue of assenting to one of the council members or a member of the public to issue a proclamation. It's not a power in charter. It is a power that the attorney's office is saying that is fully within the ceremonial scope of the mayor's duty. I'm not so sure. The last proclamation, we were making statements to our federal delegation of legislation. That seems a little.
Which one are you talking about?
It was.
You're talking about when I did the proclamation for Mr. Amity about having businesses
Yeah,
come back?
yeah,
Or visitors come to
yeah,
town?
yeah.
Anybody against having visitors
No,
come in? You
no.
got a problem with that?
Mayor, and that's why I'm making the distinction, not on the topics that we've been discussing, but the office of the mayor. And I will, I'm going to lay it out right here.
Lay it out.
There is a question about whether or not the mayor is a separate office, right?
No.
Distinct from the council members'
Not according to the
seats.
Attorney General.
Well, but I think, and I'm not getting into it because of that issue, that race. I'm getting into it to really make sure we're an effective working body. And if it is the desire under the rules to have a policy or a practice, let's put it in the rules maybe. We can grant it to them, or we can change the charter. I think it really gets into what sort of form of government, legislative body we are. And I think there's a lot of unwritten practices,
I think
Mayor.
that's pretty spelled out. Ms. Adler.
If you have a motion to make, we'll see if you have a second at this table.
Well, I'm interested to see where the body's on. It seems like the unwritten practice of allowing the mayor to be the sole keeper of this is interpreted to be within his ceremonial duties, and it's efficient with that.
And Jenny, I guess what I would say is, unless and until the Attorney General opinion is changed, I am certainly in support of keeping that ceremonial function with the mayor and under his complete, discretion. So I don't have any appetite to go down a road that has an opinion has been levied that is contradictory to something that you may be trying to change. So I have full confidence in our mayor and the proclamations that he signs, so I won't be supporting any modification.
Well, and I'm not making a point on that Attorney General opinion, which it's not an opinion, there's a letter, and that's not my issue. My issue is, and maybe there's more research to be done, and I think there is.
What are you looking for? Do you want?
Well,
you're tired of me having the authority to do it?
No,
or do
Mayor,
you want
I'm not.
What do you want? This
No,
is
I'm
a
not.
personal attack, so
No,
tell me.
Mayor, it isn't in any
Oh,
way.
it is. It
Well,
is. So you go right
well, I'm
ahead. You
sorry.
don't like what I do.
No, Mayor, I don't
Oh,
take
that's
that
right,
way.
you don't.
If you just let me continue,
Go
please.
ahead.
When the Smart Cities people came out, remember their report? They
Mm-hmm.
made very strong statements that we have an office of the mayor and this. They were under the impression we have a strong mayor form of government, which we don't. We have a
Nobody
very.
believes that.
Whoa.
I
Are we
think that
putting
was
words
how
in the
I
mouth?
interpreted it.
And Mr. Mayor,
But let's, if you want to.
I want to correct.
If you want,
Let him. Go
I
ahead.
kind of agree with Naomi. If you want to make a motion, or Sharon, I don't know who said it. If you want to make a motion to try and do something, make a motion and let's move on.
Mr. Mayor, I'd just like to correct the record that the Smarter Cities folks were not under the impression that we had a strong mayor form of government. We explained that to them, and they understood perfectly that we have a council manager form of government.
That's
I
right.
want that to
Well,
be clear.
it was written that there's an office of the mayor. I guess what I would suggest is that the rules, our council rules, adopt and identify a way to do proclamations, rather than an informal way of doing it. And I would prefer that be done, that any person can bring forward a proclamation. Because I think the proclamations do reach beyond this suggested ceremonial
So you want
manner.
everybody here to issue proclamations?
Issue them from the body and then voted upon. And if they're, and any member can call for a vote.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. I mean, we already have.
I personally don't see any reason to change. The mayor has the authority under the ceremonial, as the attorneys have said, And basically, you want to expand that ceremonial duty to all the members of the council? And
Yep.
I'm not willing to do that.
No, did you have a motion, Ms.
No,
Mathis?
I am not pushing for a motion. I'm pushing for a discussion on how we operate as a body.
Well, we've had the discussion now.
Okay.
Unless there's somebody voting or anything, let's go to item L5.
L5 is another issue that I've asked to bring forward, and I asked for some maps to come up. There was a bill that went through the Nevada legislature, and I think it was signed, it's law. I don't know if it was, signed by the governor or what. We didn't participate in it during the, the legislative session. We didn't talk about it, but it would change the county line, Washoe County, Story County line. And if both Story County and Washoe County commissions adopt a resolution to do so. And it's got two components, but I'm going to, two areas, geographic areas, and I'm going to focus on the one area. The one area is this area above Damani High School. And the green hatched area is land that is already within Washoe County and within our sphere of influence. Our sphere of influence is an area where we've identified to grow in the next 20 years. And we identified that as an area to grow about 7 or 8 years ago. And this property that's in Story County, which could possibly come into Washoe County, is contiguous to the area where we say we want to grow and also in common ownership. I think it's also in many ways being represented that it would fold into this area and be developed within our sphere of influence. So this is a very long process, but to think about the steps that this property owner would like to have to bring this property into the city of Reno for development. And the Washoe County Commission will be asked to decide if they want to bring it into the county. So I wanted to ask this body if we are have the appetite to make a statement for the county, whether or not we have intention to bring it into our sphere of influence. And I have two concerns about this. Is one, when I look at this area, all under contiguous ownership, it's about 3 Somersets. We can't afford to even serve Somerset now. And I don't know if we would have the capacity within this 20-year time frame to extend our police, fire, and infrastructure out there. And likewise, we have so much land that has been prepped and ready to develop or is in need, like the vacant motels, to redevelopment. And the more we spread out, the more we close off. We can only absorb so much development. And if we keep expanding out, it would be very difficult for us to see the redevelopment and the absorption of this other areas. So I think it is timely to have this discussion. I think it's extremely timely for us to have this discussion and think about a comment to the county commission, or at least have our staff attend their hearings and make some sort of representation that the city of Reno is or is not interested in having this in the sphere, or cannot at this point say that they would be of service of it. Because I think it's generally being set up that this would develop within the city of Reno, not in unincorporated Washoe County, because unincorporated Washoe County under the regional plan can only develop so much land, and they don't have the capacity under the formulas to take in this for development. And
Well, I would like to correct one thing before going any further. We can service the people at Somerset. We have a fire station very, very close to Somerset. We can handle that, and we do handle it with our police officers.
Okay.
So I just
My
would like to
constituents,
correct
thank
that
you.
statement.
Yeah,
for
well,
clarifying
we've been browning out, and I actually was asking staff this way. Somerset's not all the way built out. I mean, there's still lots to be developed there, and we have a fire station there, and that's an area that we envisioned to develop, and it hasn't. And are we ready to march up the hills, take in Story County's land to continue to develop at the far reaches of our valley?
I think that's up to Washoe County and Story County, and once we get there, then we look at it if we want to do something later.
Isn't it a little premature at this
Yes,
stage
yeah,
in the
way
game?
premature.
I mean, I don't want to.
A lot of forward time and money and investment. This developer, this property owner, has already put the time and the lead planning into getting a bill through the Nevada legislature. They will continue to participate in these 2 county commissions, then the regional plan. And once they're 5 years in, the momentum grows, and we will really be asked to develop this with a plan development handbook coming before us, maybe in the next year on the portion that's in the city. Are we prepared to serve these outer areas of our valley when we are, have so many lots ready and so many
Jenny, I don't think we're prepared to have that discussion yet.
I think it's
Well,
down the road.
I think it's premature.
Well, the Washoe County, what if we see it on their agenda in the next 3 months?
But that's their decision to make. If they decide they want to bring that land into the county, that's their decision. And then if someone decides to request that we put it in the sphere of influence, that's when this table can have that discussion. But it's not before us right now to be asked to be put in our sphere of influence. It might be. I'm not going to say it's not going to be.
No.
But at that point in time, I think we can have that discussion. But right now, this is between Washoe County and Story County. I don't think I'm not gonna go to the county and tell them not to bring this in because I don't want to bring it into the city. I think that's a discussion we have when we see an application.
How about if we direct
Mr.
the
Mayor, I
manager-
think that it would be appropriate for us to hear from Cadence just on our governance and our authorization. We are an entity, we are a creature of the state. The state has taken its initial action, and the hierarchy of authority and who can participate when and how.
Thank you. For the record, Cadence Matievich, Assistant City Manager. To your question, Councilmember, you are correct, and I will, as a little bit of background, there was not at any point during the discussion in the legislative process as this bill moved through the session, a discussion about the city of Reno having any decision-making authority or input on this decision. It was always discussed as an arrangement that would need to be agreed to between Washoe County and Story County. Certainly there were maps shown and those sorts of things, and the adjacency to City of Reno's sphere of influence was referenced. But to your point, in the way that our state is structured, that we do not have authority within the county, and certainly do not have authority within Story County. And it is my opinion that it would be premature for this body to take a position on a land use decision that the Washoe County Commission has not yet heard, has not yet made any indication as to what their steps would be. Certainly, it is our practice to monitor county commission meetings. We have staff do that on a regular basis where we can't be quite as 100% on it during the session, but now that we're not in session, we're watching those meetings, we're attending them. So certainly if it's the direction of this council to have us monitor this particular item as it moves through the county commission and to provide reports back to this council, we would be most pleased to do that. But I do think it would be premature for this body to take a position on an issue that has not yet come before that governing body.
Didn't mean to step on you. I don't even know what Story County. I'm not sure they want to give it up.
And again, Mr. Mayor,
I don't even know how developed it is.
That is where I come to my position that I think it may be premature for us as a local governing body to take a position on this until the two governing bodies that have to make the first decision about the use of this land have even had discussion, let alone taken action.
Well, thank you for that. And that's what I would ask, that we direct or, the manager.
Give me a motion.
To follow this issue at the Washoe County Commission, maybe Planning Commission it'll start, and report back to us as it moves forward, and highlight any issues, discussions related to a role that the city of Reno might play in this. That would be fabulous. I think that would be great. I guess another issue, the FAB was up here saying, do you want to add anything to our work program? And I think that when these large land holdings, and there are a few out there, start getting in the development ready cycle, we have a process to do an economic analysis and understand what our real dollar numbers are, demands to serve the infrastructure, the services out in these areas. So I would look maybe as a future item that we would think about a way to do, this is really a best practice to get a very good economic fiscal analysis of what a new master plan community is going to cost to your community. So that's a side issue, but maybe I'll do a little work on that because I think the Regional Planning Agency has some role in that too. But I would make that motion then.
Your motion is clarified?
That staff follow this item through the monitor it, maybe
Okay.
even look at Story County agendas, and report back to us with how it's proceeding and if there's any discussion about the city of Reno taking a role in this.
Is that anything different than you told us you're doing currently?
It is not, Councilwoman, other than we would have specific direction to bring reports back to this council on that specific item. It is our practice that when there are items of interest to the city, we provide those to the city manager, and we have discussion about whether those would need to be forwarded on to the council with specific direction on this. We would not be making that judgment call, if you will, but will simply be forwarding on our notes from monitoring those meetings.
But you do that anyway.
We do, Mr. Mayor.
I have a question. Does Story County hold their meetings online?
I
Do
don't know.
they have it online?
I'd be happy to find out. I bet they do.
I was just thinking for ease of monitoring.
Yes, and that's typically the way that we monitor. On any given week, Megan's glued to her computer, watching City of Sparks, Board of Health, and if there, as I said, if there are issues specific to Reno that are on the agenda, we will try to be there in person to the best of our abilities. If there's questions that we can answer, we try to be a resource to those other local governments as well. But that would likely be a meeting that we would watch online.
Well, I don't even know why we need a motion to have you tell you what to do. You already do, so I'm not going to support the motion. I have a motion. Do I have any seconds?
I'd second it simply for the fact that it's something that you're already doing. And I just have to say for Megan, poor Megan, I'm sorry. It's not very exciting.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Those no. Motion is, Oscar, how'd you vote? Yes. How'd you vote, Ms. Adler?
We're voting on something that we already do.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Ms. Sheevy? How'd you vote? Yes? Okay. So it's 6-1. All right. There is no public hearing tonight. Any public comment cards?
Can I have one question? I'm sorry, I didn't pick up on it when we were doing future agenda items, but for some clarity's sake, I see on the August 14th regular meeting, we have on here a panhandling presentation and a community assistance center presentation. I'm assuming this is all relative to the topic of homelessness, panhandling, and community assistance. Okay, but where it says hot topic meeting down here, which we are pulling one together on these subjects, wouldn't we have the hot topic meeting before the presentations? Am I getting them backwards?
The thought was that we would have the hot topic meeting afterwards to give council some background before we had the hot topic meeting. We can certainly reverse that if you want to.
I'm just thinking the hot topic meeting may prompt some discussions which can then be addressed in the presentations.
What is the date of that?
August the 14th is when the presentations to council. There's no date yet for the hot topic. And I've had some people ask me, when are we having this hot topic meeting? Because it's a hot topic.
If we could push it off another week or two, I'd appreciate it because I'm going to be gone at that time. But you don't have to. You can have it
Do you
without
want
me.
to? Do you want to be here for the hot topic?
Yes, oh yes.
You want to be for both?
Yes, because
okay.
we're going to be talking about the homeless.
You bet.
I've been involved with the homeless for 11 years now, and I want to be there.
And again, our thought was to give the council some background. I mean, it certainly can come back to council after we have the hot topic meeting, so you can get a presentation to get some background information. We can have the hot topic meeting, and then we can bring it back to a subsequent council meeting.
If you're bringing to educate everybody, that's one thing. If you're going to be out with a public discussion and stuff, I want to be part of it, and would appreciate the courtesy.
Yeah, the presentations on the 14th were to give council just background information on the CAC and on panhandling.
And if I may, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Manager, add to that, I think it will also give a benefit that the council members who wish to attend the Hot Topic meeting will go in with that body of knowledge. It would also give opportunity for anyone who is wishing to come to that Hot Topic meeting to watch online or to watch the video later, so that many of the questions that they may have can be answered in that presentation ahead of time, so that they come in with that base of knowledge from which to ask their questions and give their comments. That was the reasoning behind the way that we had scheduled it.
Okay, and that was, I was just trying to figure out the rationale. And
Yes.
actually, in courtesy to the mayor, absolutely to bump it out. And I'd kind of like to have the meeting start after school kind of gets back in and people have re-engaged back in the whole political process, because everyone's still on vacation.
Okay, so certainly we could look at moving that presentation to the meeting on August 28th, and then have the Hot Topic meeting shortly thereafter. All right, thank you for that direction.
Would appreciate it. My favorite motion, a motion second to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Those that oppose don't count. This meeting's adjourned.